Ever since the horrific conflict between Israel and Hamas has started, there has been an attempt, amongst many other things, to link the struggle for Palestinian liberation with this idea of so-called black liberation. Essentially, there's been an attempt to try to establish that the cause of the Palestinians in the Middle East is similar or akin to the cause of black people in the United States. But this didn't just begin in the past few weeks as of the posting of this video, when this conflict really ratcheted up. There has been an attempt by the international left wing to link the Palestinian cause with the so-called cause of African Americans, which was heralded in their terms by Black Lives Matter. And we'll talk about that in a second. During the Ferguson, Missouri riots, by the way, when Michael Brown, who was someone who was showing immense aggression towards a police officer, and in response to that, his life was taken. We don't want anyone's life to be taken, but self-defense is a moral right. In response to that, the people rioted and burnt down Ferguson, Missouri. Many of you may remember this. But it wasn't just black people, African Americans, who were actually in Ferguson. It was actually Palestinians who had been imported from the outside that also tried to co-opt that cause and also helped in the rioting. Not only that, but there was a Middle East professor who is Palestinian and supports the Palestinian liberation narrative, who said that Ferguson was his intifada. Now, many of you may have heard the term intifada revolution being used by students that are across college campuses yelling for the destruction of Israel in favor of Palestinians and endorsing Hamas. Well, they called Ferguson, Missouri a major disgrace to the American experiment, burning down an entire city on the basis of a lie, our intifada. And of course, there have been other organizational efforts to sort of link the movements between black racial grievances in America and Palestinian grievances. For example, there was a delegation led by Patrisse Cullors, who we now know was embezzling money from Black Lives Matter to fund her lifestyle. It was a delegation led by her to the West Bank, where her and her organization issued strong statements in condemnation of Israel and tried to, again, make the struggle for African Americans in America also part of the Palestinian struggle. So when I've seen these commentators and these people and these protesters trying to continue this sort of gross abuse of human language by trying to link two issues that have nothing to do with each other, and then broadly trying to create a political proposition off of those issues, a few thoughts have occurred in my head. First, I thought to myself, wow, the power of propaganda is indispensable and almost insurmountable in our modern era. Many people want to blame the radicalism we are seeing from young people on this particular issue, particularly those who are in support of Hamas, on college professors and on the education system. And while I certainly believe that the education system certainly shares some blame for this, I think people that assume it's the education system's fault entirely don't quite understand just how resistant many students are, especially in Gen Z, to actually listening to their teachers. More than the educational system, the reason why we see so many different Gen Z people getting involved in these radical movements, the reason why, according to Pew Research, that even Gen Z Republicans, conservatives, will support Black Lives Matter or support or be more pro-choice than they are pro-life, is because of the culture of narrative control that is dominant in the West. If you think about it, there are certain ideas that are allowed to slip through the Overton window unchallenged, and there are certain ideas, if you even mention them, you will be branded a pariah, you will be branded an outcast, and you will be treated as if you are second in command of Satan's legions from hell. I'm not trying to be silly, that's just how it is. And we know this. And by the way, it's not a modern thing. Throughout every civilization in history, there have been certain sacred cows that if you push and challenge them, your life is in danger. If you push and challenge them, you'll be exiled from the village. This is not a new thing. But it is important to understand how this mentality shapes how people believe things today. The current culture, Gen Z culture, is dominated by the digital era. And the digital era, amongst many other things, as Nicholas Carr pointed out in his brilliant book, The Shallows, has largely resulted, while it has resulted in the proliferation and democratization of information, it has also resulted in the weakening of attention spans and the weakening of faculties and young people. So much so that this is the first generation, my generation, Gen Z, where attention spans are so low that many people in Gen Z don't even read articles for a very long time. They don't even do things that previous generations were expected to. They watch TikToks or they watch very short clips. So when you have a short-term mindset and all of your beliefs are processed in the short term, you will be more open to manipulation than if you were someone who was more studious and more considerate. That's one of the reasons why we are seeing what we are seeing. But more generally, we're also seeing this attempt to link the struggles of African Americans and Palestinians due to ignorance. And this may seem like an obvious point, but humor me and hold your comments, because a lot of people like to comment in the comment section before I'm done. Hold your comments, humor me. Ignorance in the sense that people are not just ignorant of things. So when I say that you're ignorant of something, people will oftentimes think, well, am I ignorant of this fact or this fact? That's not what I'm interested in. Anyone can learn material. It's one of the reasons why the education system in the West, built on the Prussian model currently, is just absolutely wrong. And the idea of progressive education is absolutely wrong, because your intelligence is not determined by being able to learn material. Your intelligence is determined by being able to differentiate truth from error, being able to work from first principles, and being able, most importantly, to engage in abstract thought. That's what I think where intelligence really lies, not in being able to regurgitate a bunch of nonsense. But there are plenty of people that can regurgitate stuff and are as dumb as bricks. It's a skill to be regurgitate, but it's not an intelligence. Anyway, different topic. Ignorance of the proper way to contextualize cultural events. And this is another point I want to make here. If you think of what I have been saying this entire video, I've said the black struggle or the African American struggle. And many of you, without even second thought, probably simply sat there and said, and just let that slip by without questioning it. Those of you who have questioned it, good on you. I'm proud of you. You get a pensive sticker. But many of us, including myself, for a very long time, would never even think to question it. Of course there's a black struggle. Of course there's X, Y, and Z historical fact that bolsters this idea. But that is because our beliefs in this regard are either because we have subscribed to a worldview and a set of premises that are fundamentally false, i.e., that collectives and groups have struggles and experiences, not individuals, or because we have gotten so lazy with our willingness to think through certain propositions that something like that, even if we don't agree with what that idea entails, will just slip by our rational filter. Many of us are allowing ideas to slip by our rational filter. The premise of the linkage between Palestine, Hamas, and Black Lives Matter is, of course, as many of you guys understand, this sort of power worldview which posits that system structures and things done by these systems and structures are what decide the course of human events, and that we can view people in terms of being oppressed in terms of the oppressor, and we can deduce such situations and solutions from those very simple ideas. That's where this link comes from, and many of you already know that, but that's not where I want to focus. Where I want to focus is how this link can arise in our current civilization, and for so many people, make perfect sense. I think the real reason is because many of us have displaced the pursuit of truth, and we've displaced empirical reality for our own subjective intuitions. If you are someone who has been raised in a family that has been told that your existence as a minority, I don't care if you're black, whether you're gay or whatever, is marked by oppression and conflict and strife, then you will interpret the world through that lens, no matter who says what, no matter what says what. And many people may simply say, well, this is just my experience. This is just my lived experience. But what it really is you sacrificing reason and prostrating yourself to orthodox concepts that very well may not be true. And if they're not true, do not serve your highest being, nor do they not serve your highest being. They also don't serve the prerequisites for a healthy and prospering civilization. A civilization cannot thrive off of ignorance. A civilization cannot thrive off of bad philosophies. Civilizations can only thrive off of truth. And when I say truth, I don't just mean ideas you agree with. I mean things that, regardless of what you think, stand the test of scrutiny. Undeniable, absolute truth. But when you displace that for your own intuitions, then everything and anything can become a reflection of you, your mind, and your thought processes. In philosophy, we call this idea solipsism, the idea that the entire world can be reduced to the human person and their perspective, that nothing outside of you matters or is real. If you think about it, Black Lives Matter trying to link up with Palestinians and trying to say the same struggle is true is a long rehearsed script of organized solipsism that many people have taken to be the truth. Meditate on that for a second. Mass formation, the idea that so many people can hold a single idea in their heads. They can interpret it through their own personal biases and then project it onto the world. That is what this really is. And so the dangers that I want all of us to avoid are actually dangers that all of us can avoid if we understand one thing. Because I see a lot of people on the right wing get caught into the trap of thinking that everything's a Marxist conspiracy, or that everything is controlled by these powers, the elites, or this group that is much stronger than us and is beyond our control to correct. I want all of you to understand something. No matter what idea someone tries to instill in you, or how someone tries to instill that idea, whether it be through propaganda, lies, manipulation, or whatever, no one can succeed in pushing their ideological agenda upon you unless you let them. Many African Americans and many minorities have allowed the intellectual left to push their philosophically corrupt, epistemically unsound worldviews onto them. And they have married that with their biases, and they have created this shield of impenetrability around them, which allows them to march with the utmost certainty and zeal and fervor and antagonism against Western civilization and in favor of old world beliefs, orders, and groups that seek to destroy Western civilization and also seek to blur the lines between issues that are clearly and evidently and absolutely distinct, like the issue of the Palestinians and the issue of African Americans. Both of those things are clearly, absolutely, evidently, and 100% distinct. But when you exist in a world where truth doesn't matter, when you exist in a world where your own intuitions matter, when you exist in a world where you are uncritically accepting everything the culture has given you, when you exist in a world where this sort of power worldview then dominates and cradles and cuddles your beliefs in this respect, then you can exist in a world where you live with contradictory ideas in total and complete harmony. But you are existing in the Matrix. And as we know about the Matrix, that it's not real. The lesson between this false linkage between Palestinians and African Americans should be very simple. Do not allow your intuitions and your passions to dominate your mind, but rather seek out truth, even if the results you find out are painful to you. Because it is much better to live in the light of truth than it is to languish beneath the veil of darkness. Because darkness, as comforting as it may be, as soft as it may sound, hello darkness, my old friend, as Paul Simon said, will ultimately lead you nowhere but to your own demise and your own stagnation. And I think that as a civilization in the West, which has been the pinnacle of human progress, we deserve more than simple stagnation. My friends, if you like this message, this video, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel. Be sure to also join my Discord. If you want to help me get my message out there, be sure to give me money on PayPal, Patreon, Locals, all those places. Most importantly, my friends, study history, study philosophy, and most importantly, you better, please, stay pensive. Bye, everyone.